Hey guys, this is God of Politics. Welcome back to a brand new video. But before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also join the Discord that is linked down in the description. But in today's video, what I'm going to be doing is I will be doing the Senate election prediction. As you've probably seen on the channel, I've done my Senate battleground map earlier in the month. This is the Senate election prediction. Today's date is the 14th of July, so we're about halfway through the month. I will be doing my prediction now. And the difference between this and a battleground map, this is a prediction for what the map will look like come November, whereas the battleground map is a prediction of what the map would look like if the election were held that day. So you could say this is kind of more important. And while it's hard to predict what's going to happen come November, this is kind of just to give a little bit of an insight on how I think these races are going to go, how they're going to trend, what the final result is going to be. And so let's just get right into it. So first, the safe states for the Republican Party. There's always going to be safe states that they're going to win by safe margins regardless. One of those states is the state of Idaho, also Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. I also believe Alabama with either Jeff Sessions or Tommy Tuberville. The primary is today. I do believe that Tommy Tuberville is going to win, so you can hold me to that. So I do believe Tommy Tuberville is going to win, and he's going to end up winning by a safe margin. Tennessee safe, and then West Virginia safe, and that's going to be all of these safe states for the Republicans. That is six. How many seats is that? That's 11 seats, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 safe seats for Republicans. And then for the Democrats, I do believe they will win Oregon by safe margin. They will win New Mexico by safe margin. Illinois, New Jersey, Delaware, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Virginia. You also have Mark Warner here in Virginia, who is very popular. In New Hampshire, you have Jeanne Shaheen, who doesn't really have a good opponent to go up against. So, it looks like she's going to have a shoe-in victory. It's going to look quite easy for her. So, after the safe states, the Democrats are at 44. Republicans are at 41. Democrats had 9 safe seats. Republicans had 11 safe seats, but Republicans have more seats up for re-election, so they're at 41. Democrats are at 44. Next, for the likely margin states. First, the likely margin states for the Republicans. Alaska, this state isn't going to be too close. It is Alaska. But you do have Dan Sullivan versus Al Gross. Al Gross is an independent who said he would caucus with the Democrats, but he's a bit more centrist-leaning, I guess you could say. And every now and then you get a close race there. And I do believe that's what's going to be the case this time. Alaska is a state where, it's got very weird elections, polling data is very weird, things like that. But I do believe it will be by a likely margin, but not much more than that. As well as Texas, I do believe will be by a likely margin. John Cornyn here is a bit more popular than Donald Trump. He's going to run a couple more points ahead of him. And while he is in a state that's trending towards the Democratic column, I do believe he will be able to win, quite easily, probably by around 7 to 8 percentage points, something like that. But that could change too. And I will keep updating my predictions as we get closer to the election. I also do believe Kentucky will go by a likely margin. You do have Mitch McConnell here. He's the most unpopular senator along with Susan Collins, but he is in Kentucky, so Amy McGrath might push him into the likely column, but not much more than that. Similar thing in South Carolina. Lindsey Graham is not the most popular figure, and Jamie Harrison is good at fundraising, and he is popular amongst South Carolina Democrats, but again, it's a very red state, a state that won Donald Trump by 13 percentage points, and maybe it could be closer this time, but as of now, I am going to put it at likely Republican. For the Democrats, the likely margin states, they'll get first. You've got Minnesota with Tina Smith. Tina Smith won by 10 points here in 2018, and now she's outraising the Republican candidate this time about 7-1. So, in a state that you could say is trending towards the Republican column, I would say that's true. You do need fundraising to try and bring over some of those swing voters that could eventually swing to your party. And, it doesn't look like the Republican candidate is going to do that. So I do believe Tina Smith is going to be able to win quite easily. Similar to John Hickenlooper, for a while I said that, Arizona might be more Democrat than Colorado. I'm kind of switching my mind up about that. John Hickenlooper, after his primary, he did do very well in the primary. He exceeded expectations. While he has a lot of scandals, it is still Colorado, and you have Cory Gardner here who's an incumbent that's very tied to Trump. And so I do believe that Colorado is going to end up going to the Democrats by a likely margin there, and that's going to be quite an easy flip for the Democrats, similar to how Alabama is quite an easy flip for the Republicans. As well as the state of Michigan, you have John James here, who is quite a good candidate running against a very generic Democrat in Gary Peters. I think most people could agree to that Gary Peters is a very generic Democrat, and that's why he'll do so well in Michigan. He'll run a couple points ahead of Biden, I do believe, and I do believe he'll win by around 5 to 6 percentage points, which you could say it's closer. I mean, it's definitely closer than 2018 when John James lost by 7 points, and you could say it's a sign of the fact that Michigan is trending more towards the Republican column in the future. But at least for now, John James is going to lose quite soundly. So after the likely margin states, Democrats are actually getting quite close. Democrats are at 47 seats. Republicans are at 45. Getting into the lean margin states, first I do believe Kansas will be a lean margin. This is very hard to predict purely because of who the Republican candidate is going to be. If you look at the 2018 governor's race, Chris Kobach lost by 5-6 percentage points with a left-leaning independent that got a large proportion of the vote, 6% of the vote as well. So that really shows how bad Chris Kobach is. And national politics are different from state politics, but we have seen a lot of polling data showing that Barbara Bollier, the Democratic candidate, the presumptive Democratic candidate, would be able to beat Chris Kobach. And she's been shown close against the other candidates too, but I really don't think it'd be to the same effect that it would be with Chris Kobach in terms of being able to defeat him. I do believe that if Chris Kobach wins, you'd put this at, tilt Republican, but if the other candidates win, you'd maybe put it at likely to safe Republican. So I'm going to kind of put it in the middle of this because, we really don't know who the candidate's going to be in Kansas, but for right now, I'll put that at a lean margin because it is a state that you can argue in the future is going to trend blue due to those suburbs in Johnson County here near the Kansas City area, but that's another video. And then the two Georgia seats I do believe are both going to be lean margins. There's actually a real possibility that the special election you have a situation where it's Loeffler versus Collins due to the fact that they may finish in the top two and therefore the runoff would be between two Republicans. So in that scenario, I guess you just put it safe Republican. But for now, I'm just going to put it lean Republican because I do believe that if there were a Democrat going up against him, it would go by a lean margin. But the one that people should pay more attention to is the non-special election, the one with David Perdue. David Perdue is not the best incumbent. If you look at the 2014 race, David Perdue won by less than Mitt Romney in a state of Georgia in an R+6 electorate of the 2014 wave year. And Georgia is a state that's trending towards the Democratic column. Jon Ossoff is not the best candidate. He's not doing too well in terms of fundraising. But again, it is a state that is doing better for the Democrats in terms of the trends. And David Perdue is better in those rural areas. But, Republicans are already very maxed out in those rural areas. So how many of those suburban areas can David Perdue get is going to be the question. I do think it will be enough. He'll be able to win maybe, some of Cobb and Gwinnett County, but that's pretty much it. But in the future, Georgia Republicans are going to be in trouble in terms of being able to win in the state of Georgia. And then that is actually all the lean margin states for Republicans. So they're already at 48. They're getting quite close. They're inching towards the 50 magic number, or 51, that they're going to need in terms of winning the Senate. And then for the Democrats, the lean margin states, first is going to be the state of Arizona. You have Mark Kelly here, who is an astronaut. Astronauts have done historically well in terms of politics. You had Bill Nelson, who won here in Florida, and while he lost in 2018, he did win before that as an astronaut, not much else experience. It's a similar thing for Mark Kelly. His wife was in Congress until she got shot, Gabby Giffords. And so, that is helping Mark Kelly a lot in terms of the political ties that they have in that family and things like that. And so Mark Kelly, also, Martha McSally is really not a good candidate. Mark Kelly is trouncing her in all the polls. A new poll that just came out today showing Mark Kelly winning by 9 points. I do expect that to, shrink that lead come November. I do think Mark Kelly's going to win by very close to 5 points to almost push it in the likely margin. But it just seems kind of weird to put a state like Arizona in the likely blue column. So for now, I'm just going to put it in the lean column. And so after the likely margin states, Republicans and Democrats are both tied at 48. With 4 tilt states that I'm going to have coming up here. First, the tilt Republican states. I do believe Montana is going to be a tilt Republican state. Steve Bullock, we've seen some conflicting polling. It looked for a while that Steve Bullock was ahead in all of the polls. We had a recent poll coming out today showing Daines winning by 2 in a poll that Trump was only winning by 4. But then we also showed some polls with Bullock winning by 4 when, Trump was winning by 9. So it's the difference between how far ahead of Biden is Bullock running, because you could expect Trump to win the state by around 10 to 15 points, something like that, by around a safe margin, right? But how far ahead of does Bullock run in that? Because he is the most popular politician in the state, but is it going to be enough to win in this state that is a very Republican state? I don't believe it's going to be enough, just due to the fact that of how Republican a state it is. But he is the perfect candidate for the state, and that's what's going to make it close. And he is doing better in fundraising than he ever has before. And Steve Daines is spending a lot of money. Some of you might know a lot about that. But right now, for my rating for November, I'm going to put it at tilt Republican. For Iowa, I'm also going to put it at tilt Republican. You have Teresa Tomlinson here, who is actually quite a good candidate. She's very similar to Joni Ernst, is the thing, and that could, bode well for a lot of those suburban voters and even some of those rural voters who, voted for Joni Ernst and, shifted from the Democrat to Republican column in those huge trends from 2012 to 2016, with 2014 as kind of, the year in between those. And so I do believe this is going to be very close. People forget that Joni Ernst is quite unpopular. She's one of the most unpopular senators in the country. And while I don't believe it's going to be enough to lose in a state that Donald Trump won quite easily and probably will be able to win, quite comfortably this time, I do believe Joni Ernst is going to get a run for money by Teresa Tomlinson, but it is not going to be enough. I do believe she's going to end up narrowly winning by a tilt margin, and then that's all of the tilt margin states for Republicans. So you can also, infer that Democrats would be at 50 as well. First, starting off in North Carolina, I do believe North Carolina is going to be a tilt Democrat state. You have Cal Cunningham here, who's quite a good candidate. He's an Air Force veteran. He's doing well in fundraising. He's doing well in the polls. The state is, very competitive. Joe Biden's doing quite well right now. And Tom Tillis is unpopular. So all those factors are going for Cunningham. The only factor that isn't going for Cunningham is the fact that, North Carolina is still a state that went to Donald Trump by 3.5 points in 2016. How much is he going to win it by? Will he win it at all in 2020? I do believe if Biden wins the state, Cunningham's going to win, because Cunningham is running a couple points ahead of Biden, or you could say, Tillis is running a couple points behind Trump. You can phrase it in either way. I think saying that Tillis is running a couple points behind Trump is more telling of the fact that he's an unpopular senator in a state that does not necessarily like incumbents. He's a first-term senator that defeated an incumbent in 2014. So, this is a scenario in which Democrats do have a very good pickup opportunity. It's going to be very close either way, but I do believe that Democrats are slightly favored, as well as the state of Maine. Democrats are slightly favored in Maine. You have Sarah Gideon here, who is, the best candidate Democrats can ask for, the Speaker of the Maine House. A big contrast from Susan Collins in terms of, labeling her as being out of touch. And Susan Collins did not do herself any favors by voting for Kavanaugh, against impeachment, but also against repealing Obamacare. So she's kind of pissed off both sides, which she didn't used to do, under the Obama years. And so it's a lose-lose situation for her, and that's why she's become one of the most unpopular senators in the country, tied with Mitch McConnell. Now you could even say she's comfortably the most unpopular senator in the country. And so that's really not going to bode well for Susan Collins. We haven't really seen any good polling other than internal polling, which has shown both sides up by quite a bit. I do believe that right now, Sarah Gideon is slightly favored, and I do believe come November, Sarah Gideon would also be slightly favored, and she's going to be able to slightly win the state of Maine and have the overall Senate map a 50-50 split. In this scenario, you would have most likely Joe Biden being the incumbent president, because I've done my prediction. I predicted Joe Biden come November. If I change my prediction to having Trump win, and this is a 50-50 Senate, then, it would be a Republican majority effectively. And, right now, I do believe that Democrats are in good shape in terms of the Senate. Republicans have a lot of they have a lot of ground to gain. They can gain Maine, they can gain North Carolina, they can maybe gain Arizona, but Democrats can also gain too. They can gain Montana, they can gain Iowa, they can maybe gain Kansas, they can maybe gain Georgia. So, there's a lot of room for either party to gain. And right now, having it at 50-50, I believe, is quite, a compromise for both sides, due to the fact that the Democrats are good candidates running in good states, and it's a good map, and they're doing very well overall. And so, right now, I'll put it at 50-50 split, but that could easily change. So, thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, join the Discord that is linked down in the description. So, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys later.